You are listening to Beyond the Wheel, a podcast about the people and ideas that drive the RV community forward.
Hey, everybody, and welcome back to Beyond the Wheel podcast for another driver's edition. It's just Sean and I. And before we get into the state of the market and what's going on in the RV industry, we thought we would catch you up on what's going on in our personal lives, starting with Sean. Sean just did a Fort Wilderness campground trip.
So we went to Fort Wilderness the last week of February and the first week of March. Julie was running in the Princess Half Marathon, I think it's called, and that was the first weekend in March. So we wanted to get down there a week early to get acclimated to the Florida weather compared to what it was in Virginia. And then we stayed an extra week. So we ended up being at the campground for, I think, 13 days. The off season, it's a totally different atmosphere. I guess I would consider it off season. There were a couple of loops that were completely empty. No RVs at all in a couple of the loops. And there was a lot of like construction and maintenance going on. The meadows, they were adding, looks like a pool, a kiddie pool and a playground to the back side of it. So kind of near where the dog park is, they're adding on that side. So there was a lot of construction going on there. And then that bridge that goes over the little moat, I guess is what it is closed off. You can't go to the meadows that way. You have to go all the way around. They were also doing some road construction in there, trying to get everything ready, I guess, during the off season. And they were also doing like some underground, maybe drainage line maintenance too. So there was a lot of maintenance going on throughout the day. But like I said, there were not as many RVs there as when we've been in the past. So it was really nice in that way. Of course, the loops next to the settlement were full. We'll talk a little bit about the state of the industry in a little bit. And this was the first time, usually when you go to Fort Wilderness, like every spot, there's a different type of RV, manufacturer type, everything. You never see like two of the same next to each other. And we saw like 4 Winnebago Views next to each other in our loop. So that was pretty unusual. But the big news there is they're building the new hotel. What's it called, Kenny?
Lakeside Shore Resort.
Yeah, so that is right up against Fort Wilderness. So it is, if you're in the 100 loop, you can see the hotel from behind the settlement where the restaurant is and the Hoop-de-Doo Review. The hotel sticks up right above that, and it's probably like no more than 10 feet from the back of the arcade area back there. So it's really close. Right across the street from the horse stables is the start of the hotel. So a lot of construction going on there. They're building on the beach. They're building like cabana hotel rooms, I guess, that are elevated off the beach. So a lot of the beach is taken up by those now too. But otherwise, it was a really good stay. I enjoy going there because you get that coffee cup and you can go every day and fill it up. And it's a good deal, actually. It's like $20, I think, for that cup. And a cup of coffee or a soda is like $4.
Yeah.
So if you're there and it's good for 2 weeks. So if you're there for 2 weeks, it's a good value to get the coffee, and their coffee there is really good. So
Yeah, I misspoke, Sean. It's just called the Lakeshore Lodge.
okay.
Oh,
Yeah,
but
it's big.
I agree about the coffee mug. I always get that because, like you said, it's good for more than just coffee. Like you can have your coffee in the morning, and you can get sodas throughout the day too. Like you get your money back really quick with that mug. But that Lakeshore, well, 2 things that you said that I was happy to hear. One, you said that they're building a new pool. I think the resort needs a new pool. It's a huge resort to just have 2 swimming pool areas. So I think that is a welcome change. The other thing you said that some people might not even think is a great thing is that you said it looked like they were working on their like underground for maybe better drainage. We've been there. I think you and I have both been there at times where it floods and they come out
Oh
with
yeah.
like pumps and start pumping out the RV loops. I will say that it's never really affected the loop too much. I feel like it is usually in like the green space is over flooded and they're pumping it out there, but it's noisy when they're running those pumps because they're running generators to pump it all out. So that's great that they're working on that drainage. And the other thing, I have no doubt that that Lakeshore Lodge will be very nice, but from what you've been telling us, it sounds like, it's right on the beach. It's close to the campground. I bet you they're going to use the same dock that we use, and that dock is busy already. So I'm hoping that they add more boats to help, move that line along. Sometimes you can get caught up in a line where you don't catch a boat and now you're waiting and it's hot in the sun. There's no shade there. So now you're just standing in the sun waiting for a boat to come. So hopefully they add another boat. I hope that's their plan. And I have heard, like reading in the Fort Wilderness campground Facebook groups, that people are not liking the aesthetics of the new lodge because you can easily see it from the campground. And they said that, it is taking away from, I've always felt like we feel like we're out in the middle of nowhere, even though you're right in the center of Disney World. And, by having that lodge right there, it is skewing your perception and letting you know that you are not in the middle of nowhere camping anymore, that you are like in the center of the Disney World
Yeah, and it's
area.
not wildernessy
Yeah.
looking. It's like modern hotel kind of looking. So if they would have made it more like the Wilderness Lodge, maybe it would have been a little bit easier on the eyes, but it is a big contrast from Campground to that. But it's still probably the best campground out there, I think.
Yeah.
And I mean, I didn't go to the parks every day like Julie did. I spent a lot of time in the campground and it was still a lot of fun to me walking Toby on the trails and seeing the wildlife and seeing people fishing. It's a nice place and you can run. We ran a lot there and within the campground, you can pretty much cover all the miles you wanna cover
And I
running.
wonder, with the lodge being right there, Sean, do you think that will expand your running experience, like your sidewalk? Do you think there will be a way to run from the campground to the lodge and then maybe run around the lodge? I know you haven't seen all the plans, but and then back?
Well, there is a road because some of the buses come that way now.
Okay.
So, yeah, I think so.
So maybe there will be we're maybe losing aesthetics, but maybe we're going to gain a few pluses too. Like maybe I'm sure there's going to be a restaurant there, so maybe we'll be able to, ideally it would be great if we could take the golf cart over there and have dinner at the new Lakeshore Lodge and then come back. I agree with you though. You said, Sean, if it looked more like Fort Wilderness, it would have fit in that area a little better. I wonder why they didn't go with a more woodsy style. Maybe they didn't want two hotels to look like Fort Wilderness, like two areas that look like a lodge. They're calling this a lodge, Lakeshore Lodge. So why
Yeah.
not embrace the lodge part of it and actually make it more woodsy rather than modern? I'm sure they have a plan, and I hope their plan is not to remove some of the campground.
Yeah. Yeah. A
But
couple things that I didn't like in the campground. Number 1 was I saw more kids than usual riding bicycles and those, like, stand up the the boards that you
oh,
stand up on that
one wheels.
yeah, like one wheels and things like that without helmets riding on the roads.
Ah.
And I feel like that's a dangerous place to be riding. RVs are coming in and out at all hours of the night. I mean, they're always coming in and out of there and with the construction vehicles driving around and all the other golf carts, it they should really crack down on people wearing helmets.
Yeah, and you know what, Sean? I thought one wheels in general were not allowed. I thought any electric powered like one single wheel or two wheel vehicle, like e-bikes, one wheels, electric scooters. I didn't even think any of that was allowed anymore.
Oh, there were tons, tons.
Really? Wow.
Yeah. And it didn't affect me in a way, but it just I can tell something's bad's gonna happen, and
Hmm.
then, it's gonna ruin the experience for everybody, I think.
Yeah. 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 That's not. Oh, I wonder if they changed their rules or loosen up on their rules. But I know 2 years ago when Sabrina and I were staying at the Fort Wilderness, a friend of ours had their e-bike and they got a note on their like you'd leave your bike chained up at the dock. When they got back at the end of the day, they had a note on their e-bike saying that it wasn't permitted on property. So I wonder if
Wow.
maybe they're loosening up on what they
Yeah.
allow. And that's not good. I will say, I can see why they would crack down on e-bikes because people take advantage of it. Like people put them on high speed and they're running their e-bikes at 20 miles an hour. But if everybody would kind of respect the speed limit, there is a posted speed limit of 15. But if everybody would kind of like respect that speed, and if you're going to be on the sidewalk, I don't think that speed limit should be 15 miles an hour. That
Yeah.
that concrete walk where people have run and stuff like that, that should be closer to 5 miles an hour, even though there is no posted sign on there. But yeah, I know people kind of take advantage of the fact that they got a powered vehicle.
Yeah, the other thing that I think is kind of a safety issue and not ideal, but I don't know how you would correct it, but there were lots of RVs coming in after dark.
Hmm.
First of all, I commend people who can back into those spots after dark because if you're in one of those tight loops, man, it's tough. It's tough in the daylight. I can't imagine doing it in the dark, but yeah, I think there should be something done about that as well because I can see somebody getting hit or hurt
Hmm.
from that. And the last thing was last time we were there, like a few days a week, they had those food trucks
Oh
in
yeah.
the settlement area, and they don't have those anymore.
Oh, that's
And I like the
disappointing.
food trucks.
Yeah, I
Yeah.
thought the food trucks were awesome. I wonder if it's because of the construction going on. Maybe it's
Oh, maybe.
but they would come in the same way you would come in, I guess. They didn't need a special entrance to enter and leave. Wow, that's really disappointing because I like the food trucks too. They had like ice cream and pizza
Yeah.
and tacos, and they had
Yep.
all types of options. Hopefully, that's something that comes back maybe after the construction is done.
Or maybe
Yeah.
because it was the slow time, maybe they don't
Uh,
come. But yeah, that was a bummer. Still
yeah.
though, still my favorite campground.
Yeah, maybe it is an off-season thing, and I guess, probably pretty advantageous for you guys, especially since Julie was there to run. I bet you there's an advantage of being in your RV compared to a hotel because she's probably able to, like, prep her meal or, and be more comfortable because she's kinda, like, in her own bed for the race itself. That's pretty cool.
Yeah, and it's definitely nice staying at Disney World when you're gonna do that race because she was able to just go out to the bus stop and get on the bus and go,
Oh, they had the
you know,
buses
at
running that early for it.
yeah, yeah, yeah.
Ah.
So, not having to worry about driving, because they close off a lot of roads and
Yeah,
traffic gets a little hectic, so it was good.
that's
That
great.
that way is yeah, stay on the property when you're gonna do a race because they have buses running, and that saves you a lot of headache.
Okay. I know you guys run a lot. I do not run, but I've always, not always, but the last couple of years, I've thought about doing one of these Run Disney events because they do sound like a lot of fun. And after Julie's experience and her sharing her experience, I definitely want to, whatever the shortest one is, whatever the shortest one is that they have, I would like to try it some year just to say that I experienced it. It looks like a party slash run.
Yeah.
So very cool. Very cool. I personally haven't been up to too much. I mean, I kind of have been. I've been traveling a lot for Winnebago, doing some work with them, but nothing I can really talk about. And then I did just do the Overland Expo SoCal, and I worked the Winnebago booth there, and that I can talk about. That was really busy. We had almost 20,000 people for a 2-day event. I think that's a good sign. Even though we're going to tell you that the market is slowing down, but I think it's still a good sign that there's a lot of people coming out to these events. The Overland market is still expanding. But I would say, Sean, that that's more because they're kind of like retooling, we'll say, what overlanding really is. I think back in the day, 10 years ago, overlanding was really just about being in a car and camping. And every year they expanded a little bit more. Now it's a van, and now it's Class C motorhomes and vehicles like that. Even like Overland East, we saw Thor there with just regular RVs, not even all-wheel drive or four-wheel drive. So I feel like the overlanding market itself is kind of expanding on what it is considering. At least the expos are considering what overland really is. So by doing that, I mean 20,000 people in a 2-day event is a lot of people. It was like shoulder to shoulder. We had long lines of people wanting to check out like the Echo and the Rebel, to the point that people were walking up, would see the long line, wait in line for a little bit for the tour, and then turn around and walk away. So it was definitely busy. It was really busy show. Jumping into like the market
Kenny,
itself.
one more thing
Oh
that
yeah, sorry.
you did that I
Hmm.
thought was impressive, that I think we should share, is you and James filmed that video
Oh yeah.
for the Fit RV in his workshop, where he did a workshop tour. And for those of you that don't know James from the Fit RV, he actually has a couple of RV products that he invented and built in his workshop that are now, being sold across the world. And so you got to do a nice workshop tour with him, and I think everybody should check out the video to see what a nice setup that is.
Yeah, I'll put a link in the show notes if anybody's interested in seeing the tour. So James does have a super nice workshop. Yeah, I it's like Santa's workshop over there. Very professional the way it's set up with his he's got equipment that has like the dust collections built right into the machine, and I think it was like 85 by 35 is the size of the shop. And yeah, it was a great tour. And we've actually had James on the show because of one of his products, the Americanizer.
Right.
And that's an adapter that's used with cassette toilets, which is very popular. Yeah, if anybody's interested in like seeing how he works in his shop and what equipment he has, and ideas on he gives some suggestions on what you should think about when making your own workshop. He really puts my garage to shame, that's for sure. But yeah, great tour. He was very gracious about spending an hour with me to do this walkthrough tour. And like I said, I'll put that link in the show notes. It's really interesting.
Yeah, yeah, I thought it was really good.
Okay, and now jumping into the market, the RV market. It's a really tough market to try to predict. I never know what I never know anyway. I can never guess what's going to be popular. Like right now, the RV shipments are down for their year over year. February 2026 is 29,000 units, and that's 11% decreased from this time last year. And that's the sources from the RVIA. Like I said, I was just at that show and it was just as busy as ever. So it's hard to look at the numbers and then go to a show like that and see just how busy it is and have that make sense, I guess, in a way. When I'm out on the road, I am still seeing tons of RVs. I will say, like Sean, you had mentioned that you saw a lot of the Winnebago View Navion. I would say that's the size of the vehicle that I see the most of. Is some people call them Class C, some call them a Super B, because they are based off of a van body, but they're boxed out a little bit. So it's really hard to track this market for me anyway, because the numbers don't always line up with what I'm actually seeing out on the road. And,
What I thought was interesting, Kenny, looking at this report from the RVIA, was that in the towables, they include truck campers, and truck campers
hmm,
really carried the towable market, or else they would be much, much worse. Like the towables were down 14.8% year over year, but truck campers were up 13.2%,
ah,
which is
interesting.
surprising to me. I still don't see a lot of truck campers out on the road. Maybe out west where you live, there's a lot more, but I don't see a ton of truck campers
I
out
don't
there.
see
I
a
thought that was really interesting.
Yeah, I don't see a lot either, Sean. Even at like events like an Overland Expo where you would expect to see a lot of them, I do see them there. But they're not the majority. Vans to me are the well, car camping is still the majority, but close second would be the vans, the storytellers, the revels. Even Thor's got a couple like off-road RV vans. I personally, even out living out west, I don't see a lot of truck campers, so that is very surprising. You know what else is
Yeah.
surprising though? That the towables are the one that is down because I feel like towables have always in the past been the driving force of increased numbers. Like towables are cost less than the motorized and typically are easier for families to get into. There's more floor plans and layouts. And so it's surprising that it's actually motorhomes now that
Mhm.
are driving the sales. Huh.
And what's even more surprising to me is that of the motorhome classes that are up, vans are up 28% year over year, and the mini Cs, like the Views, are up 27%. And I see those as more expensive, for what you get.
Yeah.
They cost more per for what you get.
Yeah. If you want to go like most bang for your buck, I personally don't believe that's where it's at.
Yeah.
you know, you are spending for both vans and the Super C or not Super C, sorry, Super Bs.
Huh.
They like you said, Sean, they're expensive. They're 200 grand for
Yeah.
something that's typically around 25 feet long. Some have slides, some don't. But typically, just if it does have a slide, it's going to be a single slide. Doesn't have a lot of cargo capacity, but man, are they popular because
Yeah.
of, well, one, drivability, being able to park easy on gas mileage right now, especially. They get
Yeah.
14, 15 miles per gallon compared to like my Vista that it gets 8 miles per gallon. What do you get when you tow? When you're towing your,
About
your fifth
11
wheel?
or 12.
Oh, that's pretty good though, Sean. That's not too
Yeah.
bad. That might be something that people are looking at, especially with gas prices going up. You get a little Class B van that gets 15, 16 miles per gallon. Maybe that's how they figure that that's the equalizer there, maybe. Drivability, better fuel mileage, being able to park anywhere. If they're trying to stay out of campgrounds, they're perfect to be able to, not stay in a campground because you literally can park it anywhere.
Yeah.
You can go off grid and not worry about turning around. You always have space to turn around if it's looking a little sketch. Maybe they feel a vehicle like that saves them in fuel and it saves them from campground fees. But I see them at campgrounds too, but not as much as say a Class A or the big fifth wheels. I take my Vista off grid a lot, and I don't see a lot of other Class A's off grid. Not as much as a van or those Super Bs. Oh,
Yeah.
but they are pricey up front.
Yeah.
Even if you're
I
making
see
your
a
money
lot of
back.
vans.
Yeah, I mean, even if you are making your money in the long run, you gotta hold on to it, and as we know, most people don't hold on to
Don't.
their vehicles for a long period of time, so, yeah, I don't know. So, like, the article kinda talks about, that the COVID era boom is still kinda correcting itself. Dealers are being more cautious with their orders, and that would make sense, if they're not selling as quickly. I wonder, this didn't talk about, and maybe next time we could do maybe the next driver's edition, Sean, we could talk more about the used market because I think we're always talking about new markets. We should take a dive into the used market on our next driver's edition, or maybe just dedicate a whole episode to the used market and see what's going on with the used market. I feel like the RVs have gotten very expensive, and I wonder if the used market is picking up sales because of that. I think some of the takeaway too is, like Sean had mentioned, that these Super Bs are expensive. So, like the high end buyers are still very active. They're there. The entry level buyers seem to be the ones that are pulling back because that would be the towables. That would be those first time buyers, somebody that doesn't have a lot of money backing them. Typically, we're buying those travel trailers, and they're not there. The entry level buyers just aren't there. Of course, financing is still a bit of a
Yeah.
crap shot,
Yeah,
I guess.
I didn't think about the interest rates, but that would definitely keep non-cash
Hmm.
buyers away right now, and I think most people that buy an RV, unless I think a lot of people finance them, so
Yeah. I've mentioned before that Sabrina and I have been shopping for an RV for a long time, and we were running numbers to see, if we didn't buy in cash and if we just put, money down on an RV and we had to say we financed I think we were looking at like financing $60,000. The payments were like $600 a month. That's a lot of money for an RV payment. If you're not living in it, especially. I mean, that's a lot of money for your toy. So I would imagine that's keeping people away also. And then looking at the actual manufacturer, so that's sales. And then now looking at like manufacturing for a company like Winnebago, their revenue is up about 6%. Their motorhome, which is basically what we're talking about here. So a class B and a super B, or the small C's, they're all considered motorhome. That is up by 29%. So
Like I said, Kenny, at Fort Wilderness, we saw 4 views in a row, and they were not together. Like, they were separate people camping. They weren't camping as a group. So I think Winnebago's like just a popular brand. I think a lot of people are buying Winnebagos.
it is, and it's funny too, Sean. I always feel funny talking about Winnebago because most people listening probably know I do a lot of work with Winnebago. I'm a Winnebago ambassador. So I don't like to always like toot their own horn type of thing, but I think they are pretty creative with their floor layouts, and they do listen to the consumer. They try to make things that the consumer really wants. But it's funny when I'm working like the overland shows, Winnebago does a funny thing. So when I'm working the overland shows, a lot of people come up to me at the Winnebago booth and say, "Oh, I don't see Winnebagos on the road anymore." So I didn't know that Winnebago was still making RVs. And it's because of the way that Winnebago kind of markets their vehicles. Like they put that View Navion in big letters, but then Winnebago's written in a small letter down on the side of the RV, down over by like the driver door, passenger door. Same thing with the Revel. Like the Revel is in big bold letters, and the Echo, big giant letters. And then they might just put a W on the windshield. It doesn't actually say Winnebago. And then they just put real small lettering down at the bottom. So I think what happens a lot of times, people come up to me and they're like, "Oh, this is a Revel. So you guys make the Revel," but not knowing it's Winnebago, they'll just say, "Oh, you're here selling Revels." I said, "Yep, this is the Winnebago Revel." And they're like, "What do you mean by Winnebago Revel?" I'm like, "Well, Winnebago is the company that makes the Revel." And they're like, "I didn't know that. I just thought these were Revels." So I think a lot of times people don't even realize that they're seeing Winnebagos on the road because Winnebago's doing I would say a funny thing with their marketing, that they're selling Echoes and they're selling Revels and they're selling a Thrive now. That's their new travel trailer. It's huge letters, Thrive, but it's a Winnebago Thrive. I'm not sure why Winnebago does that, but it makes people sometimes not even realize just how many Winnebagos are on the road anymore.
Yeah, there's a lot.
Because they just don't know that an Echo, a Revel, and a View Navion is a Winnebago. Um, yeah, so I'm not surprised by their revenue still being up. This is from the Wall Street Journal. They were saying actually that Winnebago is not necessarily selling more or producing more, but they're working out a way that they're able to get a higher profit
Mm.
out of each unit. That's probably being done in the manufacturing process. Most likely, unfortunately, I'm just taking a guess out here. I don't know for sure, but they probably had to scale back maybe employees. You just don't you don't magically start making more money from units. I would imagine it's in the way that things are being built.
Yeah, and I think too, for Winnebago, they make a lot of their own stuff.
Mhm.
So they can probably cut costs a lot easier than a company that's, outsourcing a lot of the materials and just assembling it. I think
Y
that probably makes a difference.
yeah, even something like a water, the water tanks, is made in-house, and that's something too, like, people are surprised, like, when they compare, say, a Winnebago Revel with the Echo. They're similar in price, and people always ask me, "Well, why am I getting more of a vehicle in an Echo for the same price as a Revel? They're both built on Mercedes, they're both all-wheel drive. Why am I getting larger water tanks, more space and everything in something like the Echo?" And it comes down to chassis. Even though they're both built on Mercedes, when Winnebago buys, I don't think I'm giving out any secrets here. When Winnebago buys something like a Revel, or the chassis for the Revel, it's a complete van, and Winnebago is making the insides based off that van. Whereas an Echo is a cutaway chassis. So it's just the front cab and a ladder system in the back, which means that Winnebago is now building the walls, the roof, the back, everything in that back portion, and they can control the pricing a lot easier that way when they're building more of the vehicle. And that brings the
Mhm.
cost of that vehicle down to match the van itself.
Yeah,
Um,
that makes sense.
yeah, and that's and like that, it goes back to what Sean said that they just do a lot of work in house. They try to outsource as little as possible. They make their own mattress even. It's called a wind sleep mattress. It's a great mattress. It's actually one that you wouldn't throw away to get a new mattress, like
Mhm.
aftermarket wise. So it definitely helps them.
And then on the other hand, RV News ported on Thor, which is a monster company in the RV industry. They own pretty much everybody else. Reported that their shipments are up, but dealers are reporting slower foot traffic. So that's interesting as well. That they're shipping more, but less people are actually going shopping for them.
Yeah. And, I've been doing a lot of driving around. I pass a lot of dealerships. There is a lot of, what's the word that I'm looking for? A lot of product on the lots. That's not how they say it. Inventory.
Mhm.
Inventory is the word I was looking for. I go past some of these camping worlds and the Blue Compass, and they have a ton. I mean, they are just stacked side by side right next to each other. So I would imagine that's got to be helpful for anybody listening right now shopping for an RV is that there should be plenty of inventory on these dealer lots. And like they're saying, dealers reporting slower foot traffic. I know this is the way Sabrina and I shop. Like we really didn't hit dealerships until we were like ready to buy and serious to buy. And I feel like the findings that Sean and I have been seeing lately in these articles is that the shoppers are being smarter because they realize it's a big investment, and before they spend their money, they're doing a serious amount of research. So that I would think that would make sense for slower foot traffic on the dealer lots.
Yeah, I wonder, Kenny, if this fuel price thing continues, like this war in the Middle East, if it continues and the oil prices stay up, I wonder what that's going to do to the market because, like, today I had to go fill up my truck and it was $160 to fill up my truck with diesel today. So it's not cheap. And so I think that may slow people down this spring from buying a new RV just because the fuel prices are so incredibly high.
Yeah, and that is going to drive people even more into those vans and that Class C and the Super B. So a vehicle like mine, the fuel pricing around me right now is 419. That's the cheapest in my area. It actually goes higher than that. That's the cheapest in my area. So at $4.19 for me to fill my Vista would be $335, and I only get 8 miles per gallon. So I feel as if this is really going to hurt the Class A market. The Class A market's already hurting and has been hurting for the last couple of years, but I think it's really going to hurt that Class A market selling them. They're going to have to really come up with creative floor plans, I think, to respark the Class A sales. I mean, I still see plenty of Class A's on the road though, and I still see plenty in the campgrounds, but man, I can't leave my house without seeing some type of Class B motorhome. I see a Class B motorhome every time I leave my house, and I can't say the same about a Class A. I see them out there, but not like a Class B.
Yeah, we see them a lot too. Yep.
You know what people are doing with the Class B, Sean, and I learned this from the shows too, and I'll share this with the audience. Because it is a van, they get cheaper insurance on that compared to a Class A motorhome or a Class C motorhome even, because an insurance company looks at it, even though it's an RV, they still look at it as a van. I'm sorry, it's more expensive for a Class B motorhome compared to a Class C. So insurance on like a Revel would be more than insurance on an Echo, even though they're very similar vehicles, only because of that box on the back of the Echo automatically makes it a Class C motorhome. The insurance companies looks at the Revel or a Class B van as something that you daily drive compared to a Class C as a true recreational vehicle. So insurance will give you a break or cut you a slack on that Class C. And that's why I think like the View, Navion, the Echo probably is a little bit more attractive when people start, people that are truly researching, they see, oh, well, the insurance on this vehicle is going to be cheaper than the B, and that could be driving those sales towards those View Navions, and maybe that's why we're seeing so many on the road too.
Yeah, that's interesting. I didn't know that.
Yeah, I learned that from the shows, and the other thing I learned from the shows, those types of vehicles, not so much the Cs, but the Bs, the advantage of some of the Bs are people that own businesses will buy a Revel. It's got storage in the back. They use it for work through the week because they can put like lumber in the back. Maybe they have a painting company and they can use the back as a gear garage for their equipment. So Monday through Friday, they use it for business. They write it off as a business expense, and then they camp in it on the weekend. So they're getting a lot of use out of the vehicle. It's a write off for their company, and they're saving money that way. So that's another reason. Like you couldn't, it'd be difficult to write a Class A motorhome off as part of your business. I mean, you could because of mobile office, maybe, but, it's something like that, I feel like, I feel like the, IRS kinda looks at you a little funny, be like, "You really using this Class A motorhome for your business," type of thing? Whereas again, the B van, I mean, it's pretty common for contractors to use vans for business. So I've learned that from people attending the shows too. A lot of times they're able to write that vehicle off for their business.
Yeah, you can I mean, you see tons of Sprinters being used for
Mhm.
work, so yeah. Yeah,
It's
makes
one of
total sense.
Yep, it's one of the most popular bands for work, so it's not that it made a lot of sense when these people were telling me this, especially at those shows because they are younger people and they're still actively, active in the work group. It's not like a retirement show, I guess you could say. As far as the Rev Group goes, that's another big company. This is from investors.com. Their RV sales are slightly down. We've had the Rev Group on before, and they I feel like the Rev Group is more known for their bigger motorhomes. High end, big class A's, the diesel pushers. So I could see why their sales are slightly down at this time. So that was the market. We then talked about the actual manufacturers, but I wanted to talk about campgrounds a little bit. Sean, this is something that you actually, I think, pointed out to me in the article was that the high end campgrounds, the like maybe more of a glamping style, I always thought of those areas as being used by the older clientele, the retired market. But what they're finding out is it's actually the younger and it's the younger generation using those campgrounds because of social media.
Oh,
And
wow.
yeah, and once I read that, I was like, "Oh, that's interesting." I guess that does make a lot of sense. Even though older people are on social media, I feel like it is the younger generation that is actually creating the content. So that made total sense when I read that. I was like, "Oh yeah, I guess if you're going to make some content, you wanted to make it look as interesting as possible." And you're going to stay at these lavish campgrounds that have a true resort feel to them, like more than just a swimming pool, but they got the bars and they got golf courses built right onto the property. It actually made me think of Joey's Southern Locker. Oh, how do you
Oh,
say
yeah,
that?
yeah. Yep.
That's the type of place that I thought of once I read that article of younger people going to these campgrounds and staying at these campgrounds, and that the older generation is actually looking for more off grid dispersed camping, and that they're looking for like those alternative options. I guess I fall into the older crowd, being almost 52. So that would I mean, it falls right for me. I mean, I do look for off grid dispersed camping, sleeping at gas stations. I do my best to stay at a like one night campground stays. I'll stay a week at some place, but if I'm just staying at night, I do look for alternative camping options to save a buck.
We stayed at Margaritaville near Pigeon Forge, Tennessee, and you're right, it was a lot of younger people at that, and I would consider that a resort style campground, luxury, high-end kind of campground. It was a lot of young people.
Was it? Oh, that's good to know. That kind of falls in line with what the article from RV Pro was saying.
Yeah, and it's interesting that this article from Go RV Rentals, they were saying that AAA survey said that 76% of travelers are planning milestone trips in 2026. So 76% of RV travelers are planning like birthday trips, wedding trips, reunion trips. I'm guessing RVing will be up because of the World Cup, maybe. A lot of people will be traveling to some of those World Cup matches in 2026. So I think it's going to be a good camping year for campgrounds, especially if they're in those areas that people want to go. Also, Outdoorsy said that there's a 15% increase in summer RV bookings already. That's that's not good for
That's
us that like to go to campgrounds and don't like to plan, but sounds like you're gonna have to make some advance reservations in places if you really wanna go.
Yeah, and I think it was the Dirt, though. This was good news that the Dirt reported that campgrounds that are already in existence are expanding their properties. They're adding sites.
Yeah.
They are developing more of their property for use for the campers. So that'll be a good thing. But that's something that we'll see, the effects of further down the road. But I feel like that's a good sign, right? That, the campgrounds must be experiencing that they are busy and that they need to expand for this new crowd of RVers. So maybe that'll help a little bit. And I think that was the Dirt that reported on that one. It also said that the years between 2023 and 2027, over 90 new campgrounds are expected to open in the US. That's a significant amount. It might not sound like a lot, for that time period, but we need them.
Yeah. Yeah, for sure.
I think it'll be good. We are in a slight, slump right now, but not by much. It's still a very popular way to travel. I think the RV industry continues to attract new, younger audience than ever before. 9 years ago when I started camping, it was really just older people. Like Sabrina and I were the young. We were the babies, and now I see so many people in their 20s and 30s out camping and RVing. So it's going to certainly increase.
Yeah, and I guess in your type of camping, Kenny, Love's is also expanding their
That's right.
RV stop locations that they have. So that'll free up a lot of spots. And I know the truck drivers like it too because then the RVs aren't in the truck spots.
Yeah. Yeah, you're right, Sean. Almost all the loves I see now out on the road have RV like camping sites where you have full, hookups, water,
Yeah.
electric, the dog park, everything. And I kind of forget about them actually a
Mhm.
lot of times. And I wonder, do they fall under these 90 campgrounds or are they their own thing? I would think that they're their own thing. I don't think they would be considered a campground. I could be wrong. I think they're more that one night stay, 2 night stay, maybe. I don't think people are staying a week at a Love's as a campground. I still think that's for the traveler.
It's kind of tough for me because I'm kind of a diehard Pilot Flying J
Hmm.
person, and they seem to be decreasing their RV services, and now Love's is increasing. I might have to just give Love's a try to see if I like it because it seems like with all the EV stuff that Flying J and Pilot are putting in, it's taken away a little bit from their RV services.
Yeah, I totally agree. I used to only search out Flying J's for gas station stays overnight. And now I'm doing more than just leaning towards Loves. I'm now seeking out the Loves because the Loves have been better to the RVers. I'm not sure why that shift has happened. You don't necessarily even need to stay at their like camping area that's dedicated with the electric and water. Anybody's allowed to use their dog parks. And a lot of the Loves have nice dog parks. So that's something that I appreciate traveling with Belle. Whereas the Flying J's rarely ever have a dog park. The Flying J's are removing their RV camping spots for the EV stations, whereas Love's is adding EV stations, but they're not taking any away from their RV. Like they worked it out that they either are purchasing more land, I guess, but they are not taking anything away from us as RVers. So I personally have switched from Flying J to Loves, and that's something I would have never guessed I would be saying. Yeah. So I think, if you are shopping, there's definitely inventory out there for you to look at so that you can actually see it in person. I think you have more negotiating power. I think this is actually something that we've said these last few driver's editions is that you still have, the negotiating power is still on your side. The financing's still going to be a challenge, unfortunately. So, the more capital you have, the better you're going to be, and the more really negotiating power you'll have too. Some of the things that these articles are reporting that the RV values seem to hold better than expected. I wouldn't go by that too much. They're still depreciating assets. I would say if you are shopping for an RV and you're looking for something that's going to hold its value maybe better than others, just like in the car and truck market, four-wheel drive still holds its value better than a two-wheel drive. So if you are looking at motorized, all-wheel drive will hold its value better than a rear wheel or a front wheel, but it's still a depreciating asset.
And I think diesel probably holds better
Yep,
than gas.
diesel does. Yeah.
But
So if
when
you
you're
can
comparing it like to when you're saying it's improving, that could be from a 25% depreciation to 20. So, I mean, it's
exactly.
still not great.
Yeah. Yeah, so anybody listening, don't be buying an RV thinking that it is an investment. I don't It could be an investment, just not, I always say this. Buying an RV can be an investment, but not all investments are monetary. Like it can be an investment in your well-being, your health, your overall enjoyment out of life, but it might not it's not going to make you any money.
I was just listening to Dave Ramsey this week, one of the days this week, and someone was on his show saying they had purchased an RV last year. I think it was a motorhome. It was used. They had paid 65,000 for it, and they were trying to sell it now a year later, and they could only get like 35 for it.
Wow.
So when you're looking at that kind of depreciation, it's a lot, even though it may be not as bad as it used to, it could still be significant.
Because you listen to the show, you know what you're kind of getting yourself into, I think, and you can make informed decisions on what you're going to purchase and how realistic your goals are for purchasing the RV. Kind of starting to wrap up here, that the trends are definitely towards the higher end RVs, like Sean said in the beginning, those View Navions. Younger buyers are still entering the market. So you're going to be competing with younger buyers. Gas is definitely going to influence, I think, not just the purchasing of your vehicle, but it'll probably also influence the way you travel. You're probably not going to maybe do cross country trips. Maybe you're going to stay more local to your house, which, to be honest, is what KOA typically finds when they do their surveys that most people travel under 100 miles away from their home. Not too many people travel like far off distances. You might maybe once a year, but your typical trips are kind of local to home. Now, glamping and high end RV resorts are going to be popular, but the younger crowd, they're looking to spend their money on experiences and amenities and aesthetics. Older people are going to be more of your traditional RVer. They're going to be more cost conscious. The older RVer is probably on a fixed income. They're probably less interested in that glamping style experience. But, there's always, rebels out there, so
Yeah. So we've talked a lot about vans and
Mhm.
bees in this episode, Kenny. So here's a bit of trivia for you. Do you know what year the first hashtag van life was used?
2016.
Nope, not even close.
Oh, really? I don't
Yeah.
know.
I wouldn't have guessed this either, but it's 2010.
Oh, wow. Yeah, I wouldn't have
Yeah,
guessed that.
surprising.
That is surprising. It's older than I thought then.
Yeah,
Maybe because I feel like it was really starting to be a craze right around 2016, which is
yeah,
why I
yeah,
guessed it.
yeah. I
And it's
would have
still
never guessed
popular.
2010. Yeah.
I don't know, 2010, and it's still going strong. I mean, 16 years later, and it's still very, very popular.
I think that wraps it up, everybody. Thanks for tuning in, and we'll be back hopefully faster than the space between this episode and the previous one with our next episode. And until we talk to y'all again, safe travels.